Okay, today we're going to be making lasagna. So we start with some lasagna noodles, any brand will do. For a big lasagna, like this pan, which is how I usually make lasagna because it feeds a whole bunch, I'm going to use 12 strips of lasagna noodles, okay, which is about half a big box like that. You can make a smaller one, like in a pan the size of the kind you'd use, you'd make fudge in, like an 8x8. You can make it in any size pan, really. If you're gonna do it in an 8x8 pan, I'd say probably do half this recipe, so maybe 6 of those ought to do it. So the first step is to boil them. Now for this recipe, I'm gonna be using Bove's meatballs, because they're awesome. You can use ground beef, bulk Italian sausage, just fry it up. I'd fry it up with the onions and the garlic. Just fry it up and brown it, and then you add it to the sauce. But for me, I'm just gonna use these meatballs. Now they're a little frozen, so I'm gonna cut them up into little pieces, and then I'll add them, not little chunks, maybe quarters, half, something like that. And then I'll add them into the sauce. Okay, we've got water boiling here, as you can tell from the steam rising. I've got my 12 lasagna noodles here, and I'm gonna see if I can show you what I'm doing. Add them in sort of one at a time, and they're not gonna, there we go. They're not gonna all get soft all at once and go down. You wanna fill this about half full with water and cover it, because covered water starts to boil faster. So now that they're in, once the bottoms get in, they get soft, and then I'm just gonna cook them for about 8 or 10 minutes. And then, whoa, foggy. And then we'll see, after 8 or 10 minutes, they should be done. They don't have to be completely done, actually. I've made lots of lasagnas without even cooking the noodles at all first, just putting them in completely uncooked. And as the lasagna bakes, the liquid from the rest of the ingredients cooks the pasta. So I think it comes out a little better if you cook the pasta first, but you don't have to. So I'm gonna cook it for about 8 minutes, which is a little bit underdone, and then let it finish cooking in the oven. Okay. Okay, we're gonna chop up some onion here. This is a half an onion, because that's all I have. If I had a whole onion, I'd probably throw that in there. So I'm making a big lasagna, so I'm gonna use about a pound of meat, 1 onion. I'm gonna use a zucchini, a couple cloves of garlic. If I were making a smaller lasagna, I'd maybe cut that in half, so maybe a half or a whole small onion, maybe half a zucchini, something like that. You can add just about any vegetable you want to a lasagna. If I had some mushrooms, I'd throw those in there, but I don't. You can add carrots, you can add broccoli, you can add really any kind of vegetable you want. I've even had Kalamata olives in there. Your Aunt Lori and I think your Aunt Wendy makes a chicken pesto lasagna that's really good. So my classic lasagna is just onions, garlic, zucchini typically, mushrooms, sometimes spinach. I don't have any spinach today either, but so today we're gonna go with zucchini, onions, garlic, meatballs. Giddy up. There's the noodles bubbling away. Looking good. Love this mug, by the way. All right, I'm gonna cut up a zucchini now. Just thin slices. We're gonna cook this up a little bit with the onion and the garlic. And then we're gonna put the sauce in and the meatballs in. And then that's gonna become our sauce mixture that we layer in between layers of pasta and ricotta. Okay, so now we're gonna cook the onion and the zucchini and the garlic. Start with a little olive oil. Onions in. Spoon. And I'm just gonna let this cook for a while. Now, if I had mushrooms, I'd give it a few minutes and then add the mushrooms. They tend to cook a little slower than the onion, certainly. So we'll just let that simmer. And while that's cooking, we'll make our ricotta. Okay, for this big recipe, I'm going to use a big jar of lasagna of ricotta, big container, which is 32 ounces. Obviously, if you're doing a smaller one, you scale down accordingly. So we open up the ricotta, and we're going to dump it into the bowl. Pretty simple. Yep, just like that. Now we're going to add a couple of things to this. We're going to add 2 eggs. We're going to add a little cheese. This is Parmesan. I'm going to add some salt and pepper. And we're going to mix it up. Here's where you want to have a rubber spatula. We're just going to mix it up real good. I'm also going to add some Italian seasonings in here, some basil and oregano, whatever else I might have on hand. Ooh, look at those nice yolks, nice and yellow. Yeah. What I'm talking about. Give it a good stir, mix it all up. All right, should look something like that. We got, whoa, fine. We got this cooking. Just browning up a little bit. You don't want to overcook it. Again, a lot of this is going to cook in the oven, but you want to give it a little head start. So let me get that going. I'm going to use some garlic. Throw some garlic in there. Okay, I'm going to add a little spicy here. So this is a little garlic. This is going into the ricotta mixture. A little garlic powder. A little, let's see, oregano sounds good. Okay, that's always good. The Italian seasoning, which is just sort of a catch-all for a bunch of other stuff, I guess. Basil and whatnot. Okay, and we're gonna just mix it all in. Okay. Now this is looking pretty good. Time to add the meat and the sauce. See if I can do this without burning myself or the camera or the tripod. Meat that I've previously cut up a little bit. And again, these are just Bove's meatballs, which is a relatively new thing for me. Usually I would just brown up some ground beef or some sausage. A pound is what I would use. If you're making a smaller one, then half pound is probably adequate. Okay. And we're going to add a jar of Bove's. Pour that right in. But wait, there's more. I'm going to add a second jar. I'm going to save a little bit for the bottom of the pan. I'll show you what I mean. Mix that all up. And we're just gonna let this simmer for a minute or two and just let it sort of cook, let everyone get to know each other in there, share their flavors a little bit. Oh yeah, fabulous. Meanwhile, the noodles are done. I turned them off the heat and I'm just letting them sit. I undercooked them a little bit because I knew they were going to sit in the water while we got things going. So, okay. So now, while this is going to simmer a little bit, I turned it down. Now I'll turn it back up to about medium, maybe medium, a little over medium, something like that. While that's working, now we're going to start this action. We're going to start by just taking a little bit of the sauce and we're just going to pour it in the bottom. Not a lot. And with that, you just want to spread it around. You just want to have the bottom of the pan be a little bit of the base that you're going to use. So, okay, so just like that. And then we're going to layer on noodles, and then ricotta, and then sauce. And then do it again. Noodles, ricotta, sauce. And that'll take us to the top. We'll cover the top in cheese, and then we'll cook it. It's fabulous. Okay, I'm gonna take the pot of noodles, and I'm gonna get me, well, I'm gonna drain it. That's what I'm gonna take the pasta, and this one has a fancy built-in colander. I'm just gonna take it and dump the water out. And I'm gonna rinse it in cold water. And I do that, one, because I'm gonna be grabbing onto these things. And I suppose I could use like a pair of tongs or something, but I don't. So I wanna cool it down a little bit. And second of all, these have been sitting in the boiling water for a while, so they're probably starting to get overcooked. So I want to stop the cooking process by rinsing them in cold water. Also, I want them to be not as sticky. If they sit around in hot water, in the water they've cooked in, they're going to stick together. So, all right, so rinsed, and here we go. Okay, here we go. Here's how you build a lasagna. Take a noodle, lay it down. Take another noodle, lay it down next to it. Take a third noodle, and lay it down. Now, it's usually, depends on how big the pan is. Lasagna noodles are usually the same size, no matter what brand you buy or anything. So I couldn't remember if it was 3 or 4, but it looks like it's 3. 1, 2, 3 takes up the whole thing. So then I got my ricotta mixture, and I'm gonna use half of it. Okay, so half the ricotta mixture gets laid down here. And this, again, a rubber spatula here comes in handy because once you get it in there, then you just sort of try to evenly spread it, which is kind of hard because the lasagna noodles want to move with you. So I try to just like put blobs, you know, blob here, blob there, blob here, blob there, and then kind of mix it from the blob outward. Just goes a little bit smoother. Again, so you want to do half of the ricotta mixture on that first layer. Okay, so that's about half, maybe a little less. Doesn't matter. Close enough is good enough because you're going to end up using the entire thing of it in here anyway. Okay, now we're going to add about a third of the sauce, give or take. Okay, now this is the sauce we've cooked with the onions and the zucchini and the garlic and meatballs. Oh, so good. So then you just sort of spread it around. The more stuff you have in here, the more, the taller your lasagna is going to be. You got to be careful not to make it one layer too tall, which I've done before, because then it overflows when it cooks and it makes a big mess. So it looks like, if I had to guess, this is going to be a nothing short of a 2-layer lasagna is going to take it right up to the top. So we may have cooked too many noodles, but that's fine. Okay, now we add the second layer of noodles. 1, 2, 3. See, rinsing this in cold water really did the trick, because now they're not only are they not sticking together, they're really easy to handle. They're not too hot. Okay, now we have the rest of the ricotta mixture. I'm just gonna add all of it now. Some people add a lot of mozzarella cheese into their ricotta mixture. I tend not to, just because I think it gets lost in the ricotta and you're eating it and you don't even know you're eating it, so what are you eating it for? Also, I don't like 3 pounds of cheese in my lasagna. It is yummy, but try to use no more than maybe a pound of cheese, which is still a lot. I did add some Parmesan in there, though. Gives it just a little flavor. Again, we added salt, pepper, Parmesan, a couple of eggs, and the Italian seasoning and some oregano. Okay, so I'm just gonna spread it like that. Looking good. And again, I got this is the Hannaford's part skim ricotta. That's the stuff I always use. Okay. Now, looks like this might be the top layer, because I think we're getting close to the top. So I'm just gonna add the rest of this on here. Looking real good. If this were a thinner lasagna or a deeper pan, I would probably put a third layer of noodles on it and repeat the process. But let's see, actually, okay, I am gonna put a third layer of noodles on it. And then I'm gonna put the rest of the sauce and the cheese on top of it. Actually, let's see. How are we doing here? I don't wanna overflow it. So maybe 2 layers of noodles is enough. Yep, I think that's gonna be enough. And then we're gonna put cheese over the top of that. And I think that's gonna be good. Okay, so again, if this were a deeper dish, or we didn't have as much stuff in our sauce, then a third layer of noodles would have been appropriate to put over, and then put the cheese on top of that. But I really don't think we need it here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna add cheese to the top of this. So I have just regular Parmesan. This is a pizza blend, so it's Parmesan, it's provolone, it's Romano, and mozzarella. Typically, mozzarella is the one you use for this, and provolone. Mozzarella and provolone are the 2 that are big, and I'm gonna add a little Parmesan too. So this is just, you know, nothing fancy here. Just sprinkling cheese on top. Now, if you like a lot of cheese, then put a lot of cheese. If you don't like a lot of cheese, then don't. Pretty simple. Okay, I like a nice, good, thick layer on top. Okay, now that is gonna look really nice. And then I have, this is from Costco. It's just grated Parmesan. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more of that. This has more of a tangy flavor. So don't add a ton of it, just more or less a sprinkle throughout. Now, if I had some provolone, slices of provolone, I'd put those on, because I think provolone goes really well on a lasagna or anything Italian, really. And that's about it. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna cover it, and we're gonna bake it in a 350 oven. If you ever are not sure, if you have a recipe and it doesn't say what temperature to cook the oven at, 350 is always a good rule of thumb. I'm gonna cook this at 350 for about 50 minutes, 50 minutes, and I'm gonna cover it with tin foil. And then after 50 minutes, take the tin foil off and cook it for another 10 minutes. So it'll be a full hour of cooking. That last 10 minutes will brown up the top really nice. Gonna be awesome. Now, when I go to cover this, I'm gonna cover it with some tin foil. And I'm gonna use some cooking spray on top of the tin foil and then turn it over so the cooking spray side is facing down. Now, why the heck do I do that? Well, simply because with all that cheese on top of it, it's gonna melt and start to cook. And if you don't put spray on top of it, all that cheese is gonna stick to the tin foil. So when you pull the tin foil off, it's all gooey. So this won't prevent it from happening entirely, but it'll certainly help. Okay, so into a 350 oven for 50 minutes, and then we're gonna take the tin foil off and cook it for a little bit longer. So here we go. Oh yeah. Okay, just beeped at 50 minutes. Oh yeah. Let's take a look. Take that off. The greased underside prevented a lot of the cheese from sticking. Very good. Yeah, if we had added another layer on top of that, it'd be all over the bottom of the oven. So good thing we didn't. Okay, now it goes back in for about 10 minutes and it'll brown up nice, make that top nice and brown. Yummy. Actually, before we do that, something I meant to do before is to sprinkle a little bit of oregano, basil on top. Not coming out very fast. There we go. Oh yeah, okay. All right, back in the oven. Okay, here we go. Now, I took it out after 10 minutes, or I checked it at 10 minutes, and it wasn't quite done yet. It needed to be browned a little bit on top. So I put the 3D House of Lasagna. I put the broiler on for just about a minute, maybe a minute and a half, and it browned it up real nice on top. So that's it. That's lasagna. Enjoy.